Hello and welcome to episode 1255 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Friday, February 9th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this afternoon by Justin Mason. Justin, what's going on, man? January 9th? What the heck? I'm cycling us all the way back to the beginning of the year here. No, it's February 9th.
You're either really far behind or you are jumping way far ahead.
Way ahead. Yeah, exactly. No. February 9th, we are nearing pitchers and catchers. How you doing? We talked yesterday about how you doing.
I'm having kind of an aggravating morning, so I'm going to take it out on you during this podcast.
That's fair. We're going to have some
yell at
heated
you
debates.
Discussions. But yeah, I got a little minor car accident that was not my fault. I was parked and dude hit my car, and his insurance company was like, well, he's saying you
and then blatantly lied.
Yep. Yeah, I'm like, I was parked. How did I do anything?
Do you think you'll be put on the Phantom IL by Dave?
It's quite honest. I mean, we've definitely seen guys go on the IL for weird reasons. So I definitely could be.
He could get in trouble then, because apparently now they're actually punishing somebody for it. Billy Epler placed on the ineligible list today through the 2024 World Series. It's Mets GM, for those that don't know, for breaking the rules of improper use of the injured list placements, including deliberate fabrication of injuries and the associated submission of documentation for the purposes of securing multiple improper injury list placements during the 2022 and 2023 seasons. So, we've known about this for a while. We even have a name for it in the fantasy world, the Phantom IL, right? You said the exact same thing that I said immediately, because I learned about this on my stream, and I said, wow, it wasn't the Dodgers getting burned from it, which is literally what you said, because we kind of know that they're a little known for it. And, they must have enough of the burden of proof that, this guy's... With a pitcher, it is kind of easy, though, because they always have something barking, I guess. I guess my question for you, there's nothing too fantasy relevant here. We'll get into shortstops in a moment, but... You think somebody ratted them out, like a pissed off ex-Met,
sure.
Like a former player, or somebody within the org? Like, where do you think that? I'm sure we'll learn more, but what do you think? Because I wonder if it was a player.
I mean, I feel like it has to be a player, right? And my guess is, obviously it could be a former player, because when the all Houston Astros thing came out, right, it was Mike Fiers.
Exactly what I was thinking.
On a different team, being like, well, yeah, we did this. And there was like, wait, you did what? But I do also wonder, we just had arbitration meetings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it came up in arbitration, if they were all like, well, you only played 130 games. And he was, yeah, it's because they put me on the IL for a week and a half when I wasn't even injured. What do you mean you weren't even? And somebody followed up and was like, what do you mean you weren't injured? And so, I mean,
that's an interesting angle. I could definitely see it, because you got to go in there and shit on your own guy, and Arb. That's why Arb sucks.
Yeah,
you basically go in there and tell him to his face why he sucks and he's not worth this extra $300,000. And the thing of it is, too, listen, $300,000 would change my life immeasurably. So I'm not saying it's peanuts, but we're always talking relative, right? And in the relative terms of an organization, it's peanuts. It really is.
Well, I think for them, Jose Suarez's arbitration case was over $95,000.
So to go in there and just crap on your guy for that kind of money, it's just insane to me. It's insane.
Did you see the Josh Hader interview?
No. What did he say?
Josh Hader, I can't remember if it was on Barstool or John Boy or something like that. They are asking him about the why he wouldn't go into games. He goes, because I went through the arbitration process and I did all these extra innings for the Brewers, and they're like, yeah, that doesn't matter,
because they weren't saves.
And so he goes,
that's unbelievable.
Why am I doing that then? And so he goes, that's when I made the decision. I'm only going to pitch when I'm going to get a save.
And then he gets crapped on for that, like, oh, he's not a team player, and yet now hearing that context, I support that.
Yeah, absolutely did too. I wouldn't either.
And that's why we always talk about, you bring this up all the time when we talk about some young flamethrower. We just talked about it yesterday with the White Sox, that they might not go for the best guy to close, like a Garrett Crochet or like a Prelander Baroa, because the saves will drive up the price. And the thing of it is, to avoid this is they need to rework the stupid system, because that's the problem. It's such a dumbass system. It's so antiquated. It should be on something like shutdowns and meltdowns or leverage, something to show that the guy that can come in the sixth, seventh inning and be a fireman has a ton of value. But no, you can just pitch them there, run their arm into the ground, and not pay them a nickel. But heaven forbid they get 12 saves in a year. All of a sudden, price is gonna go
Especially
way
with
up.
the reliever prices this offseason, you think you'd be able to go like, look, yeah, you may say you don't value anything but saves, but teams are
Wandy
spending
Peralta.
$10 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, we
middle
didn't even talk
reliever.
about the Wandy Peralta move, but it's a 4-year move for a really good lefty. I just don't think he's going to be the closer. That's the only reason I didn't ever put it
No.
on one of our rundowns. I think it's going to be Robert Suarez. But to your point, it's like you can't, on one hand, give him a 4-year deal, nice deal that he deserves, but then also tell me that middle relievers aren't worth anything. The two
What an
things just
interesting
don't make
contract,
up.
too.
I know it was really. Yeah, I almost looked that up.
It's an opt-out after every single season he has.
Yeah. So he could just be like, "This ship is sinking. I'm out of here."
It's
Just
like an
every year,
NBA
possibly.
contract. Like,
Right?
hey, I can opt out whenever I want.
Those suckers aren't worth the paper they're printed on. Same with football contracts too. Oh, he's going to make $82 billion. Actually, it's $48 guaranteed.
Yeah.
Happy trails to Cory Kluber announcing his retirement. Amazing pitcher.
He's your boy.
I was going to say, I'm always going to have a ton of love for him. Doug Thorburn and I, was one of our biggest hits in the SP guide ever. We had plenty of other guys, but like that was one of our big name hits. And we weren't the first or the only. Carson Sestouli gets a lot of love for being early to the Cory Kluber train. So I'm not acting like we were the two to discover him. But in the fantasy world, we got a lot of love for really pushing him up our list early and being on him as he was breaking out. So I've always had big love for Cory Kluber. So hats off to him for an excellent career. But no other news in the one day. Ryan Brazier not really moving the needle. Sorry to him there. And then the only other thing was Kershaw re-signing and the Epler news. So let's talk.
Cory Kluber, I just want a quick anecdote.
Absolutely.
Cory Kluber is the only reason I'm doing this podcast.
Do explain.
You were big on Cory Kluber. You had the breakout, and then Matthew Berry mentioned you and Jason.
Oh, wow.
on the Fantasy Focus.
That's amazing.
Which is how I became aware of you and Jason.
That's amazing.
Which then dominoes fall years later, and all of a sudden, I'm doing a podcast with you.
That's incredible. I owe a lot to Matthew Berry. He used to retweet it out for years, my SP guide, and then mine and Doug's. It was first I did it by myself, and then me and Doug Thorburn did it, and was always just so supportive. All the stories you hear about him being a great dude, at least to my experience, are very true. I love him. He was the man, and I got the best compliment ever when he had to stop doing it. He said, "Your competition now, I can't do." And I was like, I'm bummed because I love the exposure I would get from the retweet and the cosign, but what a cool thing to hear. Like, wow, you've made your little thing into something big.
I've only had limited interactions with him, mainly because Danielle is in his book. So
I enjoyed that book quite a bit, by the way.
Yeah. But in the limited interactions I've had with him, he's been a genuinely really, really good dude. So
yeah, I got nothing bad to say about him. All right, let's talk some shortstops here. We're finishing up. We'll get through the rest here. We've got some names here still in this last tier before we get into kind of the long shots, deep league sort of stuff. But the late veteran MIs, basically, if you're playing in a league, and obviously it doesn't really matter where you put a shortstop versus an MI, but generally I think we say our MI is going to be the worst player, right? You're gonna have someone there that you draft a little bit later. So they're generally going to be the more the cheaper guys here. So it starts with Carlos Correa at 259, JP Crawford 275 ADP, Orlando Arcia 329, Amed Rosario still unsigned 338, Tim Anderson 350, Chris Taylor, who we discussed at third base, at 386, and then Javier Baez is down to pick 400. Justin. Some interesting names here. Crawford's actually coming off of his best year ever, while Correa and Anderson are coming off some big struggles. Arcia had a great year, all-star bid and everything. Amed Rosario, like I said, is unsigned. Baez was dreadful. So it's an intriguing group. There's going to be some good hits here. Figuring out who that is going to be the tough part. Let's start with Correa because he is still the biggest name. Is he somebody you're buying into at this price point? Is this cheap enough that you can take on the gamble because his upside is still there? Like when he played last year, which was not a ton, it was actually more than I remembered. I didn't realize it was 580 plate appearances. I kind of had his season a little bit reversed. I thought he was sub 500 plate appearances, but good when he played. He actually had a decent, volume, but not very good when he played. Carlos Correa, 711 OPS, but he's still just 29, so on the right side of 30. Is he somebody that you take the gamble on right now, hoping that he can get back to quote unquote Carlos Correa, in bold letters?
I mean, probably not. Like
Yeah,
at this
it's a
point in
tough.
there's too much injury risk for too little upside. Even if let's say he like goes back to being in bold Carlos Correa, we're still talking about mid to low 20s home runs. He's not on the Astros anymore, so the 100 days are likely not going to happen again. And
The Minnesota lineup's not bad, but it's not Houston
no,
or
and
peak Houston at that.
he hasn't stolen a base since 2019.
Yeah,
So
that part
like,
is gone, and that's a
yeah,
self-preservation thing, I would imagine, right?
absolutely. So like, yeah, I do. I think the batting average comes back a little bit. Like he's fine, especially if you feel confident that he's going to be healthy. The problem is I have zero confidence he's going to be healthy. So
And that's the thing. And you're thinking that 259 ADP is just not enough of a discount to take that gamble then?
yeah, I mean, I would take probably every guy in this tier over him.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair.
Just because like and people are like, well, Javi Baez sucks. Why would you take him? Javi Baez plays every day.
And he's
Like,
140 picks cheaper.
yeah, like I will take even at cost, or even if like it's similar cost. Like let's say both guys are at pick 350. I'm still going Javi Baez because I feel like I'm gonna get 150 games.
I
Like
mean, I guess the counter to that would be now he hasn't played 150 since 2018.
Baez hasn't.
Yeah. 547 plate appearances last year in 136 games, 144 in 2022, 138 in 21, and then 138 back in 2019. But he does have 500 plus plate appearances in all four of those years. The power, power speed is usually the name of his game. Now he power outage last year with 9 homers. Obviously things went really south there, but I think with the price difference, I definitely can
Yeah,
see
so
why you'd go with Baez.
maybe I retract that I take them both at the same. But yeah, I definitely take the discount on Baez.
At the
Like,
discount, yeah.
yeah,
But with Correa, he's a guy I've loved. He's actually who I want. It's funny we talked Baez with him when there was the big shortstop class available. I really, really wanted Correa, and when they got Baez, I really wasn't that excited about it. I wanted to be proven wrong, but so far I have not been. To be honest, it wouldn't be that much better with Correa at this point, assuming things had fallen wrong along the same trajectory. Excuse me. And at least Baez still brings excellent defense. He
yeah,
does, when he does play his 500 plus plate appearances, his 130 to 145 games, it's excellent defense, and that's great up the middle. Let's talk Crawford because he's coming off a big breakout here for him, at least. JP Crawford, he led the league in walks, which is really nice. That's not a direct category in most leagues, but that gets you on base and scoring runs in a team like Seattle, which fell short of their expectations last year, but still had a pretty good season, and it helped get him 94 runs, easily a career high. But the big 19 homers was a colossal spike, 13 over the 2022 season and 10 more than his previous career high. He doesn't run much either. He gives you a little trickle. I mean, nothing. 2 steals last year that you don't even care about that. But 266, 380, 434 was the slash line. He's also on the right side of 30. Are you buying in on the JP Crawford breakout year? Because 275 is not a terrible price, it seems, if you like him.
I mean, I'm not buying that he's gonna hit 19 home runs again,
Okay.
or score 94 runs. But I mean, I do buy that there is more power in the bat than maybe we expected. I mean, he pulled the ball. Like let's be honest. Like you go over, look at his spray chart. It's all over in right field, and the vast majority of them are right at the freaking pole. So like he just went, I'm gonna try to pull shit, and yank it out, and it worked. And so
It worked. Yeah. 43% pull rate after 34th and 30 the last 2 years. So that
Yeah.
was a concerted effort, along with a 12% homer to fly ball rate, which on its face is not a crazy home run to fly ball rate, but relative to his career is a colossal spike. He was at 4 and 6% the 2 years before that, and 7% career for JP Crawford. Also a fly ball jump, not a huge spike, but a 6 point jump up to 38%, actually 7 point, excuse me, 31% the 2 years before that. So I know you said, okay, he's not going to hit 19 again, but do you think he's going to go all the way back down to 6, given that there was at least a strategy change that yielded these home runs here with the pull and the
No,
raised up fly ball?
I think he's gonna probably be like a 13 to 15 kind of homer guy.
Okay, so you're right in
Um,
line with the projections.
yeah, like I mean, if you look at like the month by month the breakdown, he had like 1 home run in April and 2 home runs in May, and then 3 home runs every single month until he got to September, where he jacked 7.
Oh,
Like
that's okay.
I just think that is an aberration. Like, and so like, okay, probably give him the equivalent to 3 a month, and
But that's
you're at
18
15.
then, no. No, 3 times 6. There's
April,
6
May,
months.
June, July, August. Oh, it is.
So then you're
Oh,
at 8, because then, okay, yeah, you're not going to get 7 in a month like you did in September, but maybe you're not going to get 1 in April either. So you balance
yeah.
those two out, and then all of a sudden we're
I
looking
think
at maybe
15.
17.
I think 15 is where I'm probably at here.
That's a good projection. You should bring it
Yeah,
down for a projection, but I think you just talked yourself into the notion that maybe 17, 18, 19 again is at least on the table.
for sure. Uh, what I like is he just makes a lot of contact.
Yeah.
Like he's 90% zone contact, which was last year, which is actually the worst year he's had in the last 3 years in terms of zone contact. Like he
Wow, that's
sacrificed
pretty
some of
big
his
for
zone
JP.
contact, yeah, just so he could pump a few extra out. So I mean, this is a clear decision change
Yeah.
for him, and so if he wants to keep it going, and I expect he would, then he probably will. So I would say 15 home runs. It's weird that he doesn't steal bases,
I
but
know.
like because I mean, he doesn't have great speed necessarily. His sprint speed is like
No, but you don't
third.
have to steal.
Yeah.
He seems like a smart base runner. Maybe I'm just like projecting. I don't know, like from minor leagues or something. But I
Yeah.
always felt like he was going to be a solid base runner. Now he's not like Ketel Marte where he just has speed to burn and doesn't use it. Like you said, his speed isn't great. But I thought he was like a pretty savvy base runner that would get your 8 to 12 a given year. But he doesn't come anywhere near that. He has 22 for his career in
He
668 games for JP
only
Crawford.
attempted to last year.
Yeah, he was 2 for 2, even with the
One
new
in
rules.
April and one in August. Like, I mean, it wasn't like, like there was no reason to think like he's gonna change anything. It may be a team decision too, because I mean, he led off for a lot of the season, and they may just be like, "Listen, J Rod's up behind you. Don't run into an out." Like,
Exactly. And that makes
so,
sense
yeah.
because
So
he does get on base a ton, and that's how you score 94 runs is just sit there, wait until J-Rod or Cal Raleigh bring you around. And then this year, Polanco and Mitch Garver are going to be up there too. So
mhm.
I kind of like JP Crawford. I think the price is fair coming off the breakout. I don't think it's an exorbitant price. It's moved up obviously from previous years where he was a complete draft afterthought. But I think getting JP Crawford after pick 250, I can get behind that. I'm okay with
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I think it's a perfect like backup plan at MI if you miss out on the other options.
Absolutely. This All-Star, Orlando Arcia, I mentioned he made the All-Star game last year, which was definitely a surprise. We talked about Vaughn Grissom, I think it was yesterday actually, and how, we never really believed that he was going to be the shortstop. Even though Arcia was like the next man up, it was hard to be confident that they were just going to turn the job over to Arcia. But we knew the one thing that Arcia could do was pick it. And so it turns out they trusted him to do that. He rewarded them with a 17 homer season and the All-Star bid, 65 ribbies, 66 runs, 264, 321, 420. Solid season, also on the right side of 30. So we got 329-year-olds here. Did Arcia doing anything for you off the re-breakout year?
It's so weird. So like when he was a prospect for the Brewers, I was like really excited. I was like, oh man, he's like I don't think he's got a ton of pop, but he's just got enough to be like a 15 homer guy. But man, he's got speed. He's fast, and he's
I was a
never run.
fanboy.
He's never run. Like the dude, like he had a 14 stolen base season, and then it was just downhill.
And that was
there.
14 for 21. So that was like a volume thing because 14
Mhm.
for 21 is not a good success rate.
Yeah, so it may just be a matter of like he's a bad base runner because he does have a little bit of speed. Like, I guess his sprint speed is pretty low actually. It's surprising. So yeah, like he's kind of just a defensive stalwart that is going to play every day because of that, and that has value. So
Sure.
especially like your draft champions leagues, I'm totally fine with that. But I don't know if I'm going to draft a guy in like a regular 15 team league, much less a 10 or 12. I want them to have some upside late. Like this is just such boring production. Like this is the kind of guy that you draft, but you know you're going to pick someone else up later.
Yeah. And it just seems like even if he kind of repeats or even maybe gets a little bit better, I just don't know where Orlando Arcia would move in the lineup. I think ninth is just where he
9, yeah,
lives, and
yeah.
that's just going to keep the runs and ribbies down, even on a great team like Atlanta. So I'm
He
with you
only
there.
moves up to like 7 or 8 if they want to put a guy at the bottom to restart the lineup that's faster.
With run, yeah, with speed,
Yeah,
maybe like
which they've done
some
in the
loser, like
past.
a loser like
Michael
Jared
Harris.
Kelnick or something. Oh,
Oh,
I
they've done it
wouldn't.
with Michael Harris.
Yeah, they have done it
So
with Harris. So, yeah, I know the Harris believers do not want that to happen. They want him
yeah,
batting sixth up there to get that better volume. But yeah, Arcia again, if you get him, it's not killing you at 329, but I'm just not that interested in it.
yeah.
Amed Rosario does not have a team, so I'm not going to hold you to too much here because we don't really know his outlook. But generally, how do you feel about Amed Rosario? Is he somebody you ever look at in the middle of these drafts as like a potential speed oasis where you can get some double digit speed out of him, or are you just not that interested in Arcia coming off of his worst hitting year out of the last three at just an 89 OPS plus? What do you think? And
Yeah,
do
the
you have
hard
any idea? Pardon me. And also, if you have any ideas on a potential landing spot, I'm open to that too.
yeah. Is that my phone? Oh, sorry. Apologize for that.
No problem.
Yeah, I have zero interest in drafting Rosario until I know where he's at. Because problem with Rosario is he's really bad defensively,
Yeah.
and so I don't like. I think he's probably a bench bat for somebody, unless a team that is missing a shortstop, like maybe Oakland, comes up and goes, "We're going to give you the job on a 1 year
God,
pillow contract."
he is such an Oakland player at this point. Like that is exactly the kind of
Yeah,
Tony Kemp ass guy that they would pick up
exactly. A guy who can
to
play
mess
multiple
around.
positions. They can flip really easy, something like that. So
Put him in the
that,
outfield too. He's got infield, outfield
yeah,
capability. Not
something.
not eligibility, sorry, but capability.
Mhm.
He's second. Now, Amed Rosario is second short eligible. If maybe a team needs a second baseman, because I really don't think he should be an everyday shortstop, even on a dreadful team like Oakland. But I'm just having trouble coming up with landing spots for Amed Rosario.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to end up somewhere that is okay using him as a utility player.
Yep.
Which is a bummer because like I love his offense potential. If he does find a place where he can get 600 plate appearances, I'm going to be in because then the price is way too cheap. You get power and speed. I do think he is kind of, like a decent bat, but he's just so bad defensively that I don't know that any team's going to give him the reins full.
Yeah. And it's kind of showing with the fact that he's still out here because like you said, he's a solid plus bat. He's coming off a tough year, but I think most teams will see that and say, okay, you had a down year, you can get back to being a plus bat with your double capability. But Amed Rosario, just not a good fielder, and that's hurting him. And I'm with you. I'm not really drafting him until I see where he can land. I might call this a hunch. I mean, because that's what it is. I have no basis for it. I just feel like Tim Anderson. Oh, he's a free agent too, isn't he? I almost said that when we were talking about him, and
Yeah.
I wasn't certain on myself, so I didn't say that. So he's a free agent too. He does strike me as somebody who's going to find it again.
Yeah.
It's pure hunch, but I kind of like taking him in at least a league or two as a gamble because I think he's going to get back. I don't know. I feel like he's too good to be this crappy this fast. Maybe I'm wrong, but what do you think about Tim Anderson? Is he somebody you'll draft before he lands, or do you need him to land too? Obviously, he had the crazy power outage last year. The average went to shit. Nothing went right. Is his 350 ADP something that you want to take the gamble on, though, just in case he gets back?
Yeah, I think he's going to be one of my more drafted players. Just especially in these drafts where he hasn't signed yet, because I do think he's going to find a full-time job. He's still a good defensive player. I think you can chalk up a lot of last year to injuries and just the overall team makeup.
Yep.
I think he'd be a perfect fit in Miami or a perfect fit in San Francisco. And I do think he's going to land a full-time job here in the next week or two. So yeah, I've been taking dart throws. Like, he got extremely unlucky last year. Like,
2% homer to fly ball. Like, come on.
unreal.
Yeah.
Like,
He had one bomb. Like, I don't know, man. And it wasn't even like a BABIP cratering down to 323. He just 245 batting average. I just don't think that's who he is. He'll be 31 this year. He has enough track record that I just don't buy that he's a 60 WRC plus. I think a clean bill of health for Tim Anderson with a team. I like the teams you named, San Francisco and Miami. Neither of those parks are going to fuel power, but we don't even need him to get back to like crazy power. We just don't believe he's a one home run guy.
Yeah.
I'll take 9 though, but with a 290 average and a bunch of steals, because I do think he could run wild. If he's fully healthy, I think he'll take advantage of the new rules and run wild, because he's always been a very efficient base runner.
Absolutely. I
So yeah,
agree.
fully in on that, and that price point is excellent. I don't remember what we talked about with Chris Taylor at third base, but he's still a Dodger, still bouncing around. I feel like I'm whatever on him. I'll put him in a DC, but that's really kind of it for me. Where are you at on Chris Taylor?
Yeah, the only reason I'm drafting him is for the multi-position eligibility.
Yeah.
I just don't know what the role is going to be. The skills aren't. I mean, he like still hits for power, like he still gets his like,
and
but,
16 for 19 on the bases.
Yeah, like so, like there's nothing technically wrong with him except for just the underlying skills are kind of scary, and I don't know what the role is going to be consistently in Los Angeles. So, a good DC player, but not someone I'm really drafting in Fab leagues.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with Chris Taylor as well. And then Baez, we kind of already spoke about, but he's at pick 400. Another guy that, like, I'm not as interested in him as I am, say, Tim Anderson, but has enough on his ledger that at pick 400, I will take a shot on Baez, just because I think he gets back to being a double-double guy, which now he does have 2 years in a row where he wasn't, because he went 17-9 in 2022 and then 9-12 last year. He's bad. He strikes out too much, although it was actually down to 23% last year. It's just that the gifts of him swinging at the terrible pitches circulate so much that it makes you think he has like a 45% K rate. But I think he's better than this. I think I can at least get like 15 out of him. And or maybe not 15 steals, because he hasn't done that for a few years, but like 15-10, and I'll take that in a DC. But similar to what you said about Chris Taylor, I'm not going to take him in redraft leagues. What do you think about Baez? You mentioned that you would take him over Correa at their relative prices, but is he somebody you're landing on at all at pick 400?
In some DCs, I've taken him just because I know he's going to play it and get him so late. But I'm kind of looking at the underlying numbers on Baez, and I'm wondering if there's been some poor coaching in Detroit. Not to say it's like not his fault, because these are his skills. But what was he in Chicago? He was a guy that he swung and missed a lot, right? Wasn't making 70-something% zone contact, which is atrocious, right? But he was swinging all the freaking time. So if you're swinging every pitch and you're making 75% zone contact, all you need is, 1/3 of those contacts to result in getting you on base. And now you've got a 250 batting average, which is kind of what he was doing in Chicago over the course of his career. Now, sometimes you're going to get luckier than others, and so that's why we have some 280s and 270 batting averages, and that's why we have some 200 batting averages. What he's done since getting to Detroit is become more passive, especially in the zone.
Yeah, and with no result, no uptick in walks, right? So he's probably giving up pitches that Baez could actually hit for a cosmetic idea of being more patient.
And he hasn't gained very much. He's gained a little bit in terms of zone contact. He's gotten above 80%, but it's not really working for him.
No.
Because on top of, like, when you have that bad of recognition in the strike zone, like, it's either you need to be aggressive, right? Because if you're not aggressive, you're going to end up taking a lot of called strikes as well, because you don't realize when something is in the zone or not. So
Yep.
I'd almost rather see him revert back to the previous worst quote unquote skills and go, listen, I'm gonna miss a lot, but I'm gonna swing a lot. And when I swing a lot, every once in a while, I'm gonna make really, really hard, loud contact and it's gonna go over the fence.
Yeah.
So that's what I would prefer because the added patience has not resulted in added walks. If it was
No,
resulting in added walks, like then I'd be like, okay, fine, at least he's getting on base and stealing something, but that's not happening.
exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. And then with Baez also, he's got to hate that park, man. He has a 596 OPS
Yeah.
there in 580 plate appearances. So get back to hacking because again, you're already striking out a ton anyway. You're not walking. Just keep swinging again and get back to the maybe 20 homers could come back again. I'll take 20-10 all day. I'll take 15-10. And again, I'll take him into DC because the PT is guaranteed, and I'll have him fill in every once in a while. But I don't hold out hope for a big spike season the way I do a Tim Anderson or a Carlos Correa. If you kind of pair
Mhm.
those three veterans together, I see the other two with a much better chance to be like legitimate superstars for us this year. Whereas for Baez, I would be kind of blown away if he got
Yeah.
back to his Cubs peak. All right, post 300 prospect types. So they're not all exactly prospects, but they're in that realm of youth where you can still bet on some upside. Jordan Lawler at 313, Bryce Terang 318, Mason Wynn 360, Leover Pagero at 413, Jose Caballero, who we discussed a bit after his trade, pick 421, Geraldo Perdomo, who we discussed at second base, 435, Marco Luciano at 469, Brian Rokio at 490, and Coulson Montgomery at 495. Let's take them in order. Let's start with Jordan Lawler out in Arizona. He's a guy, who cares about his sample last year? It was trash. It does not matter. I think it was wasn't it like 15 plate appearances even? It was nothing. But like, I'm
Yeah.
not 34 plate
34 players.
appearance. Who cares? It was a -4 WRC plus. And like I said, I'm not just wiping it away because it was bad. Even if he had a 400 WRC plus, I wouldn't give a shit. It does not matter because of the size of it. But in the minors, double and triple A, he was excellent. And so he really showed out. He got a little 2-week taste of the majors as a reward. I think sending him back to triple A to kind of get some more seasoning makes some sense. But what do you think? Can we see Lawler for a significant period of time this year with the Diamondbacks?
Mm, I mean, I think he's going to be up at some point, but the addition of Eugenio Suarez kind of complicates things.
Yeah,
So,
especially with Rivera still on the team too.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think Rivera is much of a
No, but he's already the backup, is what I'm
roadblock.
saying.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me, it's a matter of like how long do guys stay healthy, right?
Yeah,
If guys stay healthy and productive, then Lawler stays down. And if Kettle Marte specifically, because he's the
hmm
guy who tends to get hurt, gets hurt, then I think he comes up, and then you can move Perdomo over to second base and have Lawler play shortstop. But
or Lawler, couldn't he play second base himself? Or is he a good? Is
he,
he a really good
he's
fielder?
he is a real good fielder.
Okay,
So
okay,
I think that once Lawler comes up, he played all of his games at short when he was up.
got it.
They would move Perdomo to second, and then Suarez, who's a good defender at third, can stick at third. I think defense really matters to them. So if let's say Perdomo like started to struggle defensively, then I could see that coming up. But Perdomo's a good defender, so I don't see that being an issue. Unless Lawler really just is tearing the cover off the ball in AAA, which I mean he could.
He
It's
could,
Reno,
yeah,
right?
he could force his way up. Yeah,
But I think that he's kind of blocked right now. So I'm not investing in Lawler in any sort of redraft format. I still would invest in him in a dynasty, especially I think there might be a buying opportunity once opening day rosters are announced and he goes down. So,
okay.
but ultimately, from a redraft perspective, I wouldn't peg him for more than 300 plate appearances, and I'm not drafting a guy that high.
That includes DCs, right? I know you're really
Yeah.
not in on these guys that might not come up until summer for DCs because I know you start to think like, oh, 50 rounds, that's fine. We talk about it all the time for a reason. It piles up on you quickly.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden
Like
you don't have
if you
spots.
draft, like all of like Corey Seager's a really good example, right? Oh, I've got Corey Seager, I've got Lawler, and then I've got JP Crawford. Well, Corey
hmm
Seager starting the year on the IL, potentially Lawler starts the year in the minors. Something happens to JP Crawford. Now you have nobody, right?
Yeah.
You are taking a zero, and that kills you. So this is why I don't draft these guys very often that are going to start the year on the IL or start the year
Yeah.
on the IL or the minors.
And Lawler could really feasibly not come up until July 4th, and it wouldn't
Yeah.
be crazy. He's 20, or going to be 21 rather. He has 16 games at AAA, 14 bad ones in the majors. And again, I'm not saying the bad part because that's going to super affect it, but like there's no rush here unless he just rips the cover off the ball or creates an opening with an injury. So I agree. I'm not really taking him. There's other guys I want, including this next guy, because even though I think Lawler's better, I know Bryce Terang has a job in Milwaukee. And I think at the very least, give me that certainty. He had 26 steals last year and 448 plate appearances with a dreadful bat. But at least if I got into that situation you were talking about with Crawford and Seager, and I needed somebody at that point, I could turn to a Bryce Terang who's gonna be playing damn near every day in Milwaukee. So I don't love his bat. I don't think there's a ton of upside. I think he's better than a 60 WRC plus, but not that much. I think he's probably more like an 85 WRC plus with speed. But at least it's that guaranteed PT in the majors. That's why I would actually consider him for a DC. What do you think about Bryce Terang in Milwaukee?
I don't know how guaranteed full-time playing time is for Terang. I think
Oh,
he is at least the strong side platoon with the potential of full-time playing time. But he did hit 188 against left-handed pitching last year.
okay. So strong side PT, then that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But I do think, like you said, like he could steal a crap ton of bases in that time, right? Like, I mean, he had 404 plate appearances and stole 26 bases. Like, if he can get 500 plate appearances, that's 30 stolen bases more than likely. So I like him as an option, but there is some risk, right? Like, if he continues to struggle against lefties, it's not like he was great against righties either. Like, he could find himself back down in the minor leagues. I don't know what the Brewers doing. I don't think they know what they're doing necessarily.
They've got
But
some sort of plan.
like, he's got options. So, and they do have other guys. Joey Ortiz could move over to second, and they could bring up Tyler Black.
Tyler Black. Yep.
So I think what's more likely to happen is they trade Adames and Terang moves over to short. Tyler Black takes third and Joey Ortiz takes second, and that's what they roll with. But until we see that trade, I'm a little bit more. I'm tempering my expectations on Terang getting 600 plate appearances.
That's totally fair. That is completely fair there. At pick 318, if I need some speed, I can look at him. He's not somebody I desperately want, but at the same cost, I do want Terang a lot more than Lawler for this year specifically. I do love Lawler going forward, though. Mason Wynn is a very intriguing guy. They flirted with some two-way action for him, but now he is just hitting with the Cardinals. He's penciled in as a starting shortstop right now. A, do you believe that? B, what are your expectations if Mason Wynn gets that job from day one? Paul DeJong no longer in the picture there. Path is cleared for Mason Wynn. Is he ready for takeoff?
I think he is. Like, I don't know that there's a crap ton of upside necessarily, but he is fast. I think he's got, maybe just below league average power. And I think he's got a decent enough hit tool to make it work. I feel like Wynn is one of those guys that kind of is a bit underrated. Maybe it's because the small sample was so bad. But I mean, he was 18 homers, 17 stolen bases in AAA last year with a 288 batting average. And it wasn't like he was running a super high BABIP or something. Had like a 9% walk rate, low strikeout rate all throughout the minors and even in the majors last year in that small sample was a low strikeout rate. Like, I think there's a lot to like in Mason Wynn, but I think people are overlooking it, honestly. Like,
I think
this
so
guy's
too.
a top 50 prospect that, is going to be the full-time starter, I think, in St. Louis.
I think it's the ugly sample, because it was a 29 WRC plus and 137 plate appearances. That is still tiny. Again, that's another one that I wash away. I'm not worried about that. He was a 21-year-old as well. He's got his footing under him a little bit more. I like where you're at with the AAA numbers there. That was really nice. Showed even more speed, at other stops coming up. 28 for 33 in 86 games at AA back in 2022. So he can have speed to burn. So even if he was like a 9 9-10 home run hitter. I think there's upside to
Mhm.
be like a 25 steal type of guy. I really like Mason Wynn. And then when you're talking about these three together, Lawler, Terang, and Wynn, now I've got Wynn way ahead of Terang.
Mhm.
I would much rather have him, especially at a discount, let alone if they were equal price. So I'm with you. I think he's being a little bit overlooked, and I'll take that discount and take the shot on a Mason Wynn. What about Liover Pagero with Pittsburgh? The sneaky Pirates, as you've been dubbing them this offseason. You've been saying keep tabs on them and KC, right? You've been
Mhm.
promoting that they could have deeper lineups than expected. Liover Pagero's at the bottom of the lineup. He didn't kill it last year in his time. 213 plate appearances of a 74 WRC plus. That's starting to be a little bit of a bigger sample. It's still small. I'm not rinsing it all away as nothing because he did have a 32% K rate and 5% walk rate. That might be indicative of some plate skill trouble. But 7 homers, 6 steals. 22 years old last year. He'll be 23 this year. Pagero should have an angle on that second base job. Does he give any interest from you?
Not a ton. I I worry he's going to end up in a platoon, and if he ends up in a platoon, he's on the short side.
I was going to say that could
Um,
be really rough.
yeah, I mean, there's just not a ton in terms of like a carrying tool for fantasy for him. I really think he really needs the full-time playing time in order to kind of unlock anything really juicy. And G1 Bay is there. G1 Bay is a lefty. G1 Bay was really good until he got hurt. And I, you look at what Pagero did in that short sample. He hit 308 against lefties and 203 against righties.
Oh,
That sounds like a short
that
side platoon
screams
guy to
short side.
me.
Yep. Dang.
So that like I understand why some people are like, "Ooh, no, he's going to be given the job," because I think they forgot about Bay. But Bay's a Bay, and
Bay
I
is
think
Bay. Yep.
he's gonna get opportunities. I think so. Honestly, I think this is one of those that you should probably look a different direction.
I think that's fair, and I am one of those who has had some Pagero love. Now he is cheap enough that like it's not killing you to take him, but I don't know that you want to stock up as like this is my breakout type of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you want to go that route very often as I'm looking over. I think I only have him on one roster, so that's good because I did talk him up a little bit earlier in the season. I'm glad to see here as I look over my rosters that I don't have him on a bunch because yeah, short side platoon you don't want that at all.
Yeah.
That doesn't bring anything for you. All right, well, Liover Pagero, we'll see what happens with him. Caballero, we did talk about him during the trade a bit. I don't remember how deep we went. I just know that as we keep getting deeper into the offseason here and get closer to spring training, the more I'm interested in Caballero. What do you think of him as the starting shortstop for the Rays? I feel like they're going to give him a real shot at this job. And he had 26 steals last year and 280 plate appearances with a 96 WRC plus. I feel like he could be a decent player for them. I think they're just going to kind of go, glove first there at short, get their offense everywhere else, and turn him loose. I'm pretty intrigued by Caballero. What about you?
I think it really comes down to like, what do we think? When do we think Taylor Walls is going to be back? Because
True.
like Caballero, like as of right now, if the season started next week, I'd be like Caballero is the starting shortstop. He will get all the reps at least early on in the season. And he was a really, really good defender, at least from a range perspective, uh, in 2023. Taylor Walls is an elite defender too.
He
They
is.
really like Taylor Walls. I know he's coming off of off-season hip surgery. It really kind of depends on whether Walls is going to be ready for opening day or not. There's a feeling, I think, right now that he's probably going to miss the first month of the season. And so I'm totally fine taking the gamble on Caballero, knowing that I can drop him for somebody else if Taylor Walls comes back and starts taking his playing time. But
Hmm.
like, I don't like if I think in a draft and hold, I'm a little less likely to take the gamble because you're kind of stuck with him, and he could
True.
just become a utility infielder, which I mean could still be helpful because he can steal a lot of bases in short stints, but it's just not as easy to predict when those short stints are going to come. So I'm in regular fab leagues, deep fab leagues. I'm definitely down for Caballero. In your DCs, I'm a little bit less.
I think that's fair. I think in the DC, like the price is such that like it's not going to kill you if you have taken him already and you want to take another share or two at 421. Excuse me. But I do think that I can see your angle there on the better play being in a waiver league where you can say, okay, this didn't quite work out because Walls came here and just took over the job. So we're going to punt Caballero back to the waiver wire. But as it stands right now, because it's a pretty big surgery, hip surgery is a big deal for
Mhm.
Walls. I'll take my short sample steals here. And, I still, even with the more plentiful steals out there, I still find myself sometimes coming up a little bit short where I just take too many power guys. And so I think that's maybe why I lean on some of these speedy guys later and end up, getting a Tim Anderson, a Bryce Terang, and a Caballero, two of those three in a given draft to supplement my steals. So I do
And I
like
think that's
him.
what you should do. Like, I think you should prioritize batting average and power, and then because there's gonna be a Jose Caballero every year that kind
Mhm.
of comes off of every waiver wire in your league and steals 20 something bases
Yep.
with these new rules.
John
So like,
Gurley.
yeah, I think there's just gonna be the old school Jared Dysons and Rajay
Hmm.
Davises that just like give you a ton of stolen bases for no cost. So I think that is the right strategy. I just want people to know, like, hey, like, this isn't a set it and forget it, look at the end of the season line kind of guy. I think that there is as long as Taylor Walls comes back healthy, and that's an if, right? I mean,
Sure.
obviously, he could have a setback. He could miss half season, he could miss the whole season. Um, but like, if and when Taylor Walls comes back, they like Taylor Walls. Like, he's gonna get
They
playing
do.
time. He's a good defender. He's got a little bit of pop. He's got speed. Like, he's gonna get an opportunity. But until Walls comes off the IL, Caballero, I think, is the dude.
Since he's on our list later, I'll ask you real quick on Taylor Walls. At pick 509, is he somebody you're specking on? Like, do you like him enough that you're going to take the gamble on the health, or you're just saying be careful over investing on Caballero because of Walls?
Yeah, no, I don't. Walls most likely starting the year on the IL. I'm not taking
Yeah.
him at all.
Okay, that's where I'm at too.
Like, I don't
Perdomo,
think Walls is good, but I just think he's gonna play.
yeah, because he can pick it really well.
Yeah.
Perdomo, we discussed at second base. Marco Luciano, your guy. This was a one-time huge prospect, but his prospect star has dimmed a bit. But it looks like he's got a beat on the job at shortstop for y'all. He had a little sample last year, nothing to really write home about. But and actually only played 18 games at AAA too. So he's kind of like Lawler, where he played, mostly at AA, a little bit at Triple and the majors, neither of which were particularly special. I think that's why you said Tim Anderson could be the guy for y'all. Because are you really going to go into the season with Luciano? It seems like that would be a pretty big challenge for a guy who struck out 38% of the time in his AA or in his AAA and MLB samples. What do you think of the 22-year-old Luciano?
So Zaidi, the GM, has said that they are giving Luciano the opportunity to compete for the everyday role. I mean, they would like him to take that opportunity and
Okay.
run with it. I mean, this is a former top tier prospect.
Mm-hmm.
That's the good news.
The good news is
So,
about to end, y'all.
yeah. The bad news is Luciano has a ton of raw talent. Like a lot of you watch him take batting practice and you go, wow, this guy's got power, right? Like, and he's I'd say an adequate defender, average to adequate defender at short. But he can't hit the ball when people are just throwing it for batting practice. And when he does hit the ball, it doesn't go in the direction you'd like it to go. It goes down. What do you think his average launch angle was? It's obviously a short sample, right? We're talking about
Sure.
45 plate appearances, right? In the
I'm,
majors.
I'm
What
gonna
do you
say
think
like
his launch angle
I'm gonna say like
was?
2 degrees because you're setting it up to be pretty low. So I'm gonna say two
Right.
degrees.
So, and would usually, average anywhere from like 11 to 17, right? Or
Yeah.
something like that. Negative 4.5.
Does he swing like this?
Or sorry. Correction, negative 5.1.
Oh, geez. You get that. So you chop down the ball. What the hell? That's terrible. I mean, that's just beating it into the ground when he makes contact too, because you mentioned he hardly ever makes contact.
Yeah.
That's the real concern. Like I said, 36% in his little AAA sample, 38% K rate for Marco Luciano in his major league sample. And then when he does make contact, it goes straight into the ground right in front of his feet. So it's just hard to be terribly excited about anything with him right now. Yeah, the price point is low at 469, but I think I just like too many other players. And I don't know if he's going to break camp here, right? Like we got him penciled in, but I would not take that as Bible that he's going to be the dude.
Unless they bring someone else in, I think he breaks camp.
But you mentioned Tim Anderson as a fit. I do think that'd be a great fit for you.
I think it would be a fantastic fit. I hope. I mean, even honestly, even Amed Rosario is a fantastic fit.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and bring in him. But the Giants have made like vocal, like kind of commitments to the guy, or at least committed to give him the opportunity. So I do think that there's a pretty good chance that they just roll with Luciano. But just don't be fooled, because there are going to be people that be like, "Oh, he's got an over 50% hard hit percentage." It's much easier to hit. Like, think about like when you're swinging an axe, right?
Yeah.
Which direction is it easier to swing it, up or down?
Exactly.
And that's part of the reason why his hard hit percentage is so high, is because he's swinging down into the ground
and never makes contact. So it's a limited sample of contact, and it's bad contact, but it happens to be hard. And that's why hard hit rate on its own can only give you so much info. So it's a great point there. Be careful with Luciano. I take either of these next two guys over him, to be honest. Let's start with Brian Rokio in Cleveland. He's an interesting guy. They got him and Gabriel Arias here kind of battling for some things at shortstop there. Rokio got a little taste of the majors, 86 plate appearances, nothing to write home about there. Basically played a full year at AAA, 537 plate appearances, 7 homers, 25 steals as kind of a league average bat, but almost a 1-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio, which I really liked. It was a big walk rate spike for him from 8% to 11%. And his strikeout rate has come down a decent bit, and it rounded out at 12% last year. Of course, he comes to the majors, and while it was a tiny sample, he looked nothing like that guy with a 31% K rate and 5% walk rate. I'll lean more on the 537 plate appearances, but I don't want to get too hung up on that strikeout to walk ratio, even though it was good. Can Rokio do anything here? Can he be a 20 steal guy if he gets that shortstop job?
I don't know that I would say a 20 steal guy. I think you're looking at maybe a 15, like a 10 to 15 stolen base guy.
What kind of pop? 7, 8?
Yeah, like 10 maybe at best, really.
Okay, so maybe a double-double if he volumes it.
He needs to be a accumulator. Like there's no like there isn't really like his best tool is a hit tool, which is a good tool to have.
Sure. But
in order for that hit tool to mean much, you need to volume your plate appearances, and I think he will. But like you're talking about, like maybe like a 265 batting average, that can go one way or the other depending on BABIP plug, and maybe 10 home runs, maybe 15 stolen bases if he can continue to keep all that playing time. Part of the other issue is not a great defender necessarily. I mean, average to below average. So I would say that the chance that he keeps that playing time if he struggles at the dish is pretty low. So I think there isn't a ton of reward here, but there's a lot of risk.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I see some upside for Rokio in the long term, but I just don't know if it's going to come to fruition this year. So I'm not really trying to dive in. I would take him over Luciano personally, but I'm not trying to advocate for him too heavily. This next guy, even though I don't think he'll break camp, and that's why I'm not really going to have him in too many DCs. Once Coulson Montgomery comes up, I'm definitely in, because this dude can rake. The problem is I don't know when that would be. This team's going to suck shit this year. He's peaked at AA. He did go to finishing school, aka the Arizona Fall League, but I think he needs. It doesn't make any sense for them to really bring him up too early unless he is just blitzing AAA to a degree that's like, okay, you got to bring him up now. But that's my biggest hang up with Coulson Montgomery is I just don't know when this wretched team would call him up. And so that's why I can't get too hyped until we know that. But I do like the long-term aspect of Coulson Montgomery. I think he's got a really good bat. And I think that's what we're going to eventually see is some really major power from him. He just needs more seasoning. So he's not a 2023 guy or 2024 guy for me right now, unless he comes up in the summer after having a great AAA run. But what do you think about Coulson Montgomery? More on the dynasty landscape, though.
So the problem from a 2024 perspective, so you now get draft picks if
Yeah,
your rookies do well, right? So the problem is if you're a team like the White Sox, you know you're not going to be good, and you know that Coulson Montgomery isn't going to be up right away. Are you really going to get many draft picks if you bring him up in July?
that's the thing.
Now they're
Like,
almost incentivized to make sure he doesn't pass his rookie eligibility
so
thresholds,
that he can do it
so
next year.
so he could do it next year, and I think that's what happens.
Yep.
So like I don't think he's up until August or September, and I don't think he passes the rookie eligibility thresholds, which means he does not have an impact for fantasy, except for maybe in the last month of the season.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's kind of where I'm at. But what about the dynasty long term then with
I like him long
Montgomery?
term. Obviously the hit tool is kind of the big question,
Sure.
but the majority of his stops throughout the minor leagues, he's kept his strikeout rate around or below 20%.
With good
So
swinging strike rates too. But he does
yeah,
go for, he goes for his power.
and there is a ton of pop in the bat. So the problem is he's only had 167 plate appearances. So I do think he's a 2025 guy. He is a guy that I think will be moving up kind of your, dynasty ranks over the course of this year as he starts to get closer and closer.
Agree.
But for this year, I don't really care that much.
Yep, that's exactly where I'm at. Keep the name Coulson Montgomery in your brain. And if he does come up in the summer because he's raking in AAA, be ready to waiver or to free agent bid him, but don't get too hung up right now in drafting him. I think there's just many other guys I'd rather take that have a real potential to do some damage this year, including the guy who's going to start ahead of him as we move to our next second to last tier here. Excuse me. Anything left in the tank? John Birdie at 428, Cal Farmer 493, Jorge Mateo 523, and Paul DeYoung 607. I want to start in reverse order there because we don't really have to cover all four in deep detail here. But Paul DeYoung, a former big time favorite of yours back in St. Louis ages ago, mind you. So I'm not like trying to roast you on that or anything. I'm just saying you used to have some real love for him. Everyday job again, Justin. Can he find anything? It's been a while. It's been a long while. Is there anything here for Paul DeYoung?
I honestly don't know at this point in his career, like if he's gonna be able to do a ton in terms of like giving back amazing fantasy value. He did have 14 home runs and 400 plate
Yeah,
appearances last year. I mean, it came with a 207 batting average, and that's the highest batting average he's had in the last 3 seasons.
Jesus.
So
You know what's the
that's
most frustrating part? Is he figured out the defensive piece. Remember when he came up in
yeah.
2017? He was a dreadful defender, but he was just smoking the shit out of the ball that they had to keep playing him. Well, subsequently, several years later, I think it was really in 2021 when it turned for him, he's figured out the defensive piece, but now his bat sucks. And so that's kind of a bummer.
2019 was the dream season. I mean, he was a plus defender, had 30 home runs, stole 9 bases, hit
Yeah,
233.
rabbit ball.
Yeah, I think part of that is the rabbit ball. But ultimately, like there is pop in the bat. I think he's going to play every day, and
It's a
so
good
I don't
part.
mind him as a DC pick.
Yeah, six picks, 600. Like you're looking for guys that are going to play. So
Yeah,
I actually really will take him in DCs. I have taken him in 2 DCs
I
so
have.
far. But I don't have super high hopes because the bat skills right now are just really, really atrocious.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the glove, I think he's going to have a chance to play every day because he has turned his glove around. What about another boy of yours, a joint boy of ours here with Jorge Mateo? But we've since moved along from that train. But can he find some PT again and be interesting as an infielder, outfielder type? Are you still on that train at all? He did have 32 steals last year, but it came with a hot 67 WRC plus. Anything for Mateo left in the tank?
I mean, I think there is, but the problem is, will they let him on the road enough for it to matter? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you said he stole 32 bases. 22 of those were in the first half.
Yep.
10 of those were in the first month. Like, he was
Wow.
unreal. He hit 347 in the first month with 6 home runs and 10 stolen bases. He hit one more home run the rest of the season, and then stole 22 bases over, kind of like spread out over the rest of the season. I think what we saw from May on is probably more likely what Jorge Mateo is, which is a guy that can give you some cheap speed in kind of a part-time role. Again, the Rajay Davis type.
Yeah.
Where he might get some cheap home runs, might get some inside the park home runs. But Baltimore is so loaded that I just don't see him ever getting back to a full-time role.
Yeah, and it's funny because I said we were both big fans of him at a point, and I was. The funniest thing was I jumped off after the big breakout. Literally after 2022, when the price went up, I wanted nothing to do with him because I was terrified of the talent that he had, or the skills that he had shown, which was to say not much. And so then last year it really came crashing down. At least now it's a bottom bargain, basement price. But I think there's just other players I'd rather have because, like you said, they're so freaking loaded, dude. They could have included like 2 more guys in that Burns deal and barely felt it. That's why it feels like a fleece. I think people are saying, oh, they fleeced them. I don't agree with that. But the reason it feels like it is because the impact for the Orioles of what they lost is negligible. That's not to roast Ortiz, but it's just that they have 7 other Ortizes waiting in the wings. So yeah, it's gonna be tough for Mateo to find any time. Farmer or Birdie do anything for you?
I mean, Birdie kind of does because I think he's gonna play unless they bring
Birdie or
Mateo
in. For your like spec cheap steals, who would you rather have there?
Birdie is the starting shortstop right now.
Until they sign Tim Anderson
or Amed Rosario, yeah. I'm gonna go Birdie.
I think it's still the right pick though. Yeah, even if he does get replaced,
it feels
I think it's gross.
Still the right pick. But if he gets replaced, if they do bring someone in, then maybe I pivot.
I might not still. I might still stick with Birdie even if they
he's
get somebody
gonna find
in there.
25 stolen bases.
Of course he is, and he can play infield, outfield too. He can play everywhere. So I think he'll get his PT there, and then Farmer. He'll bounce around, but he doesn't really have a fantasy carrying skill.
Yeah.
Okay. What about our post 500 long shots?
Let's see. Post 500 long shots.
We've got Taylor Walsh. We talked about him.
Yeah.
Daryl Hernaiz. That's Hernaiz for Oakland. Luis Angel Acuna for the Mets. Matt Shaw, who I believe is for the Cubs. And then Brooks Lee for the Twins. Now, these are all post 500 picks, so who cares what the ADP is? They are free. You can use your favorite term. They are free, Justin. So which of these free guys are you most likely to get?
Probably none of them.
Well, yeah, because you're not taking guys that don't have any sort of guaranteed role or even an angle toward a guaranteed role.
I'm just double checking on whether or not Shaw is on the 40-man.
Okay.
And I don't know. He is not. So I guess if you like gun to my head said like I've got to take one of these guys, I think I'm taking, because I'm now double checking to make sure, is Hernaiz on the 40-man?
Yes, and he's actually penciled in on the roster right now.
Yeah, so I think I would take Hernaiz because I think he has the best shot of being on the roster early on in the season. But this is also why I said Oakland would be a great spot for Tim Anderson because you
really nailed it with those 3 spots. Oakland, San Francisco, and Miami. They desperately need to go talk to these guys that are out there. Is there a third free agent so they can each get one? Because we mentioned the other 2, but I'm trying to think if there's anybody else.
I'm sure there is. I mean, Blake Snell hasn't even signed.
I mean shortstop.
I understand. I'm just saying, like, if Blake Snell hasn't signed, like, Elvis Andrews,
crazy. Oh yeah, there you go.
There.
Oh, your boy B. Craw.
Brandon Crawford has said he's open to playing in a different location.
Nick Ahmed.
I guess Urshela is probably not really a shortstop.
Ooh, if Alberto Mondesi signed with Oakland, would you be interested again?
Yeah, I've drafted Mondesi.
I think I would too. I'm such a fucking sucker for that guy, dude. I'm such an
You're getting
idiot.
him so late
At
now.
least, yeah, at least now you're not paying the like fourth round pick shit that we used to do back in the day
Yeah.
when we were freaking out
Enrique and
over him.
Hernandez is still around. Like,
Yeah.
There's your Oakland A right there.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So there's enough to go around there, but I want Anderson with y'all and Amed Rosario with the Marlins. I think that works. But anybody else? I mean, I went pretty deep on the list, so I'd be surprised if you could come up with anybody. But if you got anybody else you want to give a shout to at all at shortstop?
Eddie's Leonard.
Oh, okay, that's a good one. Yeah, I actually have a name too, so we'll both have an extra name here.
So like this is obviously another one of these guys that like probably not going to start on the major league roster. And I don't even know if I think he is on the 40 man because I want to say, oh no, maybe not. I think he is actually. But he was part of a trade, I believe, this offseason from the Dodgers. Or no, sorry, last year. From the Dodgers to the Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
Leonard was like a top 50 prospect at one point. And there is some pop, a little bit of speed, and a halfway decent hit tool. And I just think he was never really given an opportunity just because there's so many other guys in Los Angeles. I could see him.
We do not have that problem in Detroit.
Yeah. I could definitely see him like he's not going to play shortstop. Like he's not,
But third base, like I know your boy Colt Keith, or what do you call him? You call him Keith Colt. He's probably going to be more second base. McKinstry, who is a guy I have propped up before in the past, and I want him to be good, but he's not that good.
He's a super utility guy.
Yeah, exactly. So Eddie's Leonard could mix in. So that is a good call. I like that one. I've got one as well. In Boston, David Hamilton, former Longhorn.
Yeah.
Speedy as hell. And I don't really know where he's going to play right now. He's not going to play short unless Trevor Story gets hurt or something, of course, and Devers has third locked. But you never know. And Trevor Story could get hurt again. So we're talking about guys right now that obviously don't have a great path, but we're just throwing out some names of interest.
Yeah, these are like super deep sleepers.
Yeah,
kind of guys.
This is like know these names if they get called up. You don't even really have to draft them in DCs, but just be aware of who they are. And I would say David Hamilton, 57 steals in AAA last year. With 17 homers. Now, I don't really think there's much power. I think he'd be more of a single-digit power guy. But if he came up and ran wild, if Story does get hurt again, not a bad name to know there. Anybody else?
In the same kind of vein as David Hamilton, Kyron Paris, he came up a little bit last year for the Angels.
With the Angels, yep.
He stole 44 bases in Double-A last year and 3 bases in the majors in just 46 plate appearances. The dude knows how to steal bases. It's clear that they are going to allow him to steal bases if he's on the team. He does have 3 minor league options, so it's probably more likely than not that he gets sent down, especially because a lot of the guys on the Angels right now don't have options. Like, Adele doesn't have options. Hicks doesn't have options. Theis doesn't have options. Stefanik does. So, I mean, maybe Stefanik.
He's like the only one on the bench with an option.
So I think he probably needs an injury of some sort, but luckily for him, the Angels just get injured. So it would not be surprising to me at all if Kyron Paris comes up and steals just random bases.
Yep. And it's been forever since I've mentioned OOTP as a reason to care about a player. I've seen him pan out beautifully in that game multiple times. And obviously that doesn't mean anything. Bottom line is, though, he's a legit prospect. He has some talent. And so he is on my radar. 14 and 44 last year at Double-A, as you mentioned. Those were the homers and steals. So could definitely be on the radar. So there you go. Shortstop in the books. We now move to the outfield. What should we try? Should we try to get it all done next week in 3 episodes? You think we can do that?
We could try.
Monday, Thursday, Friday. I think we can. We don't have to go super deep on like all the first rounders. Hey, what do you think of Ronald Acuna Jr.? You like that guy?
I've never heard of him. Is he a prospect?
Yeah. Has a chance to get called up. So just keep him on your dynasty list. So let's commit to that, and then we know we're going to need more than 3 episodes for starting pitcher, but we'll deal with that when we come to it.
That'll be the rest of the month.
Correct. Outfield will start next week, though. Justin, hopefully get everything situated with the with the car incident. Glad the family's back on the mend, though. Hope you have a good weekend. And I know that you're a stupid Niners fan. I don't hold a huge grudge.
I'm not a Niners fan.
Oh, that's right. You're a Commanders. Your wife is a Niners fan. Are you
Yeah.
going for them, or are you tweaking her and going for the Chiefs?
I mean, I honestly couldn't care less.
Oh, well, that's fair. That's fair.
Like for
Because
me,
the baseball season starts on Sunday night.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'll do my annual tweet. I never tweet anymore hardly, but I will do my annual "It's baseball season" tweet at the end of the game. Don't worry.
Yeah, like for me, I wouldn't do it to tweak her. It's more my brother-in-law who's really annoying with stuff. And he's a big Niner fan, but like I couldn't care less. Like
I've always had a soft spot for the Niners. I'm a big Jerry Rice fan growing up, so even though they broke my heart by beating my team, I actually am kind of going for them. So,
I just hope it's a fun game to watch. Like for me, I just don't want to see like a 30-point blowout. I would rather
either
see
way.
And
but I'm kind of tired of the Brock Purdy hate.
Yeah,
even though I am annoyed that he became Steve Young at halftime, like I'm tired of everyone just looking for reasons to hate on him. I think he's a good player. He seems like a genuine, nice dude as well. So yeah, I got a little bit of love for the Niners, even though they ousted my team.
Maybe it's because I'm just not as big into football as I used to be. You know, because baseball has just taken over my life. 365 days a year. I don't understand why people hate these teams. I think these are two really likable, fun teams.
Remarkably likable teams with so many cool, fun players. I agree. And it's just that I'm going to sound so boomer with this, but it's just that like toxic sports culture of like hating on everything. I think McCaffrey's a kick-ass dude and an amazing player. Debo, Kittle, both tight ends. I'm a big fan. I love the Kelsey brothers. I've mentioned that on the show a bunch of times. So that's why I got some love for KC too. If they win, I won't be mad about it. Mahomes, now he's got some family issues. You know, his father, former baseball player. That's what I'm saying. Like people are taking that out on him because his brother's a tool and his dad doesn't know how to call for a fucking ride.
His wife is annoying.
I'm not a fan of her either. Yeah.
As someone with an annoying wife, like I get that. Like, you know,
oh man, I hope she listens to this episode. She won't.
She's still out with COVID, yeah.
But everyone's gonna send it to her. Everyone's gonna send it to her.
Then
timestamp it. Timestamp it, y'all. Get him in trouble.
11/11.
He shouldn't have said that. All right, buddy. I love you. I'll talk to you on Monday. Take care.
Take it easy.